Trevor, Lane, Lakers, Nation. Let's start with this, Trevor. What are the chances we will see Bronny in a Lakers jersey by next season?
Bronny by next season, I would say not great. I really think he's going to wind up, I don't know what school, but I think he's going to wind up going back to school. I mean, the new rules or newer rules that allow players to declare for the draft and then later withdraw to just kind of get some feedback. I think that's probably what's going to happen here. If he doesn't, then sure. I mean, the Lakers, they could have some second round draft capital they could use to potentially pick him up. But from what I've seen, and I've yet to really do a deep dive into the draft, I'm a little bit behind in terms of all that stuff. But Bronny, it doesn't seem like he's going to be a high draft pick unless it becomes a situation where LeBron says, hey, wherever he goes, I go.
Oh, yeah.
Then who knows what's going to happen, but doesn't seem like that's the way this is going to play out. So I kind of think that he's going to wind up going back to school.
What would that mean for the Lakers if that did happen with LeBron?
If that did happen, I think the Lakers would do everything that they could to probably draft him and see what they could do to keep LeBron. I mean, from everything we've heard, the Lakers want to keep LeBron. They want him to retire as a Laker. They want to extend this relationship, however long he's going to play. So I would imagine they would probably do what they could within reason to draft Bronny, but that would become a very interesting situation. And then the Pelicans' decision with what they want to do with the Lakers' first round pick, whether they want to take the pick this year or next year, would become that much more interesting if the Lakers really needed a decently high pick in order to try to get Bronny. That would certainly be a hurdle for the Lakers to overcome.
Staying on Bron for a second, shooting over 40% from three. Obviously, he doesn't have the defensive impact he used to. Obviously, not the same athlete. But is it fair to say he's more skillful than ever before?
Yeah, I mean, he's been tremendous. And look, 39 years old. We all know that he's careening towards 40, and yet his 3-point percentage has now jumped up big time from last year. He's made major strides there. He was able to put in a lot of work on his shot over the summer. And the results you could see them. And this is kind of what happens as players get older. They have to rely a bit more on their outside shot. I mean, it's an extreme example, but we saw Jason Kidd, who came into the NBA as essentially a non-shooter from behind the arc until the end of his career. That's essentially all he did was shoot threes in terms of his own offensive production. So LeBron, the 3-point shot coming along, it's great timing for him. As we've noticed, he's not quite as he's still an incredible athlete, but not quite as quick as he used to be. And so the ability to knock down that three at a high rate has been a major addition to his game this year. I believe he shot 32% last year. Now he's above 40% this year. So that's definitely helped him sustain the level of efficiency that he's got, despite maybe having lost half a step, a quarter of a step. I mean, this guy still can throw down lobs and all kinds of crazy stuff, but he's certainly not quite the guy that he once was.
It's interesting. Like, I think the same way as you when I'm watching. I'm like, maybe half a step. But then if you go back to like prime Bron, full speed down the court, that's when you really say you lost it. Not watching him now, just going back to those videos, you're like, wow, that was a different guy back then.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it just goes to show how far ahead he was back then, just how an absolute, I mean, freak athlete he was at that point. And he still does stuff now. What I've noticed with LeBron is the straight line explosiveness is still, it's not quite what it was, but it's still there. Like if he gets ahead of steam and go to the basket, he can get up and throw a ball down. He can catch a lob. He had one the other day where he adjusted to a little bit of a misplaced lob from Austin Reeves, caught it in the air, still adjusted and dunked it. I mean, that straight ahead stuff, he's great. It's the lateral quickness. It's the quick short burst, the quick closeout to the 3-point line. That's the kind of stuff where he has to stop and then go. That's the kind of stuff where you've noticed a bit of a drop off from him.
I've spoke to the fact that I think is a fact that the Lakers season has been such a roller coaster, right? Like there was ups, there was downs, but the last 30 haven't been bad. It's been pretty good. 21-9 in the last 30. You actually had this in one of the podcast titles for Lakers Nation. And I'll ask you, how good are the Lakers?
Yeah, they've been really good since the All-Star break. Now, unfortunately, they've lost strategically. They've lost the games that they couldn't lose. They lost to their direct Western Conference opponents, and so that's kept them back in the 9 seed. But up until last night's loss to the Wolves, they were 9-1 over their previous 10 games. They've really stepped it up on both ends of the floor. The defense struggled for a few weeks, but over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so. The defensive intensity has picked it up, and the offensive production has been excellent, which we would have predicted it, but they've become one of the best three-point shooting teams in the NBA. A lot of that is D'Angelo Russell, shot extremely well from deep. LeBron, of course,
Yeah.
also shooting the ball well from behind the arc. So this team, I think they've got a puncher's chance against anybody if they've got their guys healthy. They're still waiting for Jared Vanderbilt to hopefully come back, but we're running out of time here in the season. But they're a team that right now their offense can get going. Defense still wins championships. So we'll see what they can do to shore that up, because for a little while there, they were truly a bad defensive team. But I think this team is, at worst, they're a threat. At best, they could make a serious run. And where that ultimately falls, we'll see. We'll see.
What would you consider a successful season at this point?
I mean, at this point, given the way the season is played out and given how many injuries, people look at the Lakers and say, oh my gosh, this team's been healthy. Why are they struggling? They haven't been. They've been one of the most injured teams in the NBA.
Why do you think that's Why do you think that's the perception?
Because LeBron and AD have largely been healthy.
Gotcha.
Anthony Davis has played in so many games, and LeBron and has played in a lot of games. So those guys being healthy has created this perception that this team has been extremely healthy, and they haven't been. Everybody around them has been a revolving door of one injury after another. And so I think that this is a group that they can, in terms of a successful season, if they could mimic what we saw last season and make a Western Conference Finals push, that would probably be considered a success at this point. I mean, you lost Gabe Vincent for essentially the entire season. He's trying to come back in and figure things out. Jared Vanderbilt has been out for most of the season. He's a really key defensive piece for this group. So just given the lack of cohesiveness, and some of it is due to their own choices and the lineups that they've played in terms of not capitalizing on the chemistry they do have on the roster, but anything more than a West Finals run, I think obviously getting through the West Finals, that would be incredible for them. But a pretty successful year would be, I think, getting to those West Finals. Anything less, and I think fans would be disappointed. And given the state of the Western Conference,
yeah,
it's not. Look, there's a lot of teams that can make a case for making a run here. So who knows what's going to happen in the Wild West?
You just spoke to AD's availability, and this might sound crazy if you haven't been watching Lakers basketball, but has AD been playing at an MVP level?
I think that he'd be getting some MVP buzz if the Lakers were like the 3 seed, something like that. And personally, I think that we attach team success to individual awards too much. We go a little too far.
Do you like that? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's too much. I think it goes too far. But I will say, I don't think he's winning the MVP or anything like that. His name would be in the conversation if the Lakers were, 3rd seed, 2nd seed, something like that. He would at least be a name that would be thrown out there. He wouldn't be winning it. He's been really good defensively. Offensively, he's been some nights he's better than others, but in general, he's been a really solid offensive piece for the Lakers this season. And he's had a good year. And the biggest thing, though, is he's largely been available. Now, of course, we're coming off of the second game now of the season where he got hit in the eye,
right,
and left the game early, and that effectively ended the game. That's what happened against the Warriors. Now has happened here against the Wolves. So that's a challenge when, given the immediate context that I'm saying Anthony Davis has largely been available. He just left the game early. But for the most part, over the course of the season, he's played a lot more than we've seen him play in the past. And so that's been the biggest thing. Elsewhere, he's been excellent on both ends of the floor with a few hiccups along the road, but he's had a great season.
Is this his best regular season as a Laker?
I think so. I think it's his best regular season. 2020, he was great. The 2019-2020 season, he was great as well, especially his ability to shoot the 3. That season was a big deal.
Right.
That's faded as time has gone on. He's picked it up a bit recently, but given how much this team now relies upon him, it's really become his team. I mean, LeBron James, he is a guy who can drop 40 any given night, but he's not doing it every single night. Every night he'll give you 20 plus and 8 and 8 and all that. He'll still do that, but he's not going to put the team on his back every single night. Anthony Davis has needed to be much more consistent this season, and that's what we've seen out of him this time around.
AD has to be the best player for this team to win a championship?
I think so. I think not. I think he doesn't have to be the best player on the team, right? Like if LeBron has a transcendent game, that can happen. I think LeBron's ceiling is still higher than Anthony Davis' ceiling. He can have a game.
Let me ask you, is it higher than any players in the league? his ceiling. One day, because we saw that one half, right? He had dropped
Yeah.
26. Do you still believe that to be the case?
I don't know if it's higher than any player in the league. There's so
Mhm.
many guys that could be so explosive and can
Jokic,
go
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
Jokic
yeah.
can do crazy things. But I think Anthony Davis. I think the key for the Lakers is Anthony Davis needs to be as good as the other team's best player. And if you've
Okay.
got that, then the Lakers are in really good shape. Where they get into trouble is when Nikola Jokic is
Yeah.
decisively better than AD. If Domantas Sabonis is better than AD, that's where the Lakers start getting themselves into trouble.
I think that's part of the reason why he's not getting. I mean, he probably will go all NBA, but like MVP buzz, all NBA buzz. Obviously, it's the record, but also too, we've seen AD play really well against Jokic, and Jokic was just so much better. So
Yeah.
everybody looks back at that last playoffs, and they kind of mix that in with the regular season when you're not watching Lakers on a day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are big, national TV matchups that everybody's going to remember. They're
Yes,
going to stand
yes,
out. And AD hasn't always been the best against some of those guys. Even Alperen Sengun has given him some trouble, and he's fantastic. But
yeah,
these big kind of physical centers can sometimes give AD a little bit of issue, and that's popped up a number of times this season.
yeah. If Jokic gives you trouble, if Jokic gives you trouble, I guess maybe Jokic could give you trouble as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Rui dropped 30 last night. Can you speak to Rui's impact on winning this season?
He's been great. He's been
Yeah.
great, and that's a lot of the frustration from Lakers fans has been that Rui wasn't utilized earlier in the season. He wasn't given the starting role immediately after Jared Vanderbilt got hurt in the preseason. But Rui Hachimura has been phenomenal. His efficiency has been insane. He's one of the top 3-point shooters in the NBA. Last I looked a couple of days ago, he was in the top 10 in 3-point percentage. Never would have expected that from him, that he'd be that good. But he's been extremely efficient, and he's getting. I like the way the Lakers are utilizing him as a fifth starter. He's not necessarily the perfect fit because he does have some defensive liabilities that you'd obviously want to have a stronger defensive player next to D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves. But what Rui has done on the offensive end of the floor is he's taken advantage of all the attention being paid to D'Angelo Russell, to, of course, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And so you'll see a number of times each game where he gets a favorable matchup due to a switch where teams are worried so much about LeBron and AD, they live with putting a weaker defender on Rui, and he's able to feast. He's getting a lot of open opportunities. He's sneaking along the baseline, making some really smart backdoor cuts when the Lakers get the ball into the paint. And he is thriving right now, particularly on the offensive end of the floor. He's also picked up his rebounding, so that's
Mm.
helped. But he's just been so efficient on the offensive end that he's having a great season. There was a point at the trade deadline when you were hearing from a lot of teams, I don't know about Rui. I don't know about his contract moving forward. I don't know if this
Mm.
is a good salary for us to take on. Maybe he's neutral value. I mean, he looks like a bargain right now on his deal.
But speaking of the trade deadline, D'Lo was the talk of the town when it came to the trade deadline. And is it fair to say like he saved the Lakers season? He played great, so great since then.
Yeah, I mean, he is next to LeBron.
Mm.
D'Angelo Russell is the guy that everybody follows in terms of energy, right? If LeBron is fired up, if LeBron, and you see the games where
Right,
LeBron
right.
he says, okay, I'm going to push down on the gas pedal a bit. He's making all these extra closeouts, extra effort on defense, all that. When he does that, everybody follows along. The next guy, though, it's not AD, it's D'Angelo Russell. When D'Lo is hitting shots and he's fired up and he's got the swagger going and all of that, it picks up the entire team. He's definitely become a leader on this squad, and his season has been fantastic. He's been easily their third best player. He's had a tremendous year. The trade deadline, them putting him in all of those trade conversations, was not so much about, hey, this guy's no good. We need to trade him away, and that's going to make us
Right.
a better team, or he's a terrible fit, like we saw with Russell Westbrook last season. It's more of his contract, right? He's got a player option this summer. We have to explore the trade market because that puts us in a tough spot over the summertime. So that was the driving force behind D'Angelo Russell being on the trade market, because he's been great this season. They had to explore the trade front due to his contractual situation. They didn't find something that they liked, and he's been great for them. And I'll tell you what, if he keeps this up, and the key is going to be, can he do it in the playoffs? Because that was the problem for him last year, and it cost him a lot of money last season on the free agent market. But the key for him is going to be doing it in the playoffs. But he's going to get a big raise if he continues playing like this all the way through.
Biggest X factor for this team is it D'Lo or is it somebody else you're looking at?
Biggest X factor for this team, I think it is D'Angelo Russell. I think he's the guy that if he's got it going, if he because he could go on a stretch where he goes 3 of 4 from three or something in
Right,
like a
right,
minute and a half, right?
right, right,
You
right.
you get that stuff out of him, then you're in pretty good shape. You can either shoot your way back into a game or increase a lead, kind of end a game. D'Angelo Russell has the ability to do that. So I think he is the biggest X factor for this team, especially if he's not getting targeted. If he's able to hold his own defensively, that can be a big key too. But yeah, his ability to score the basketball has been a major X factor for this team all season long. And I think heading into the postseason, it's going to remain to be that case. He is the guy where if he has it going, it takes the Lakers to another level.
Trevor, did I hear you say that LeBron and AD subbed themselves in?
Yeah, that was at the end of the game the other night. LeBron and AD, and that was that against the Wizards. And LeBron and AD were late. It was late in the game. The Lakers, their deep bench guys, like Max Lewis was in. They're deep bench guys. It was garbage time. Those guys uh turned the ball over a bunch. Suddenly it was a 5-point game, and it was like 17 seconds left in the game. The Lakers couldn't afford to lose. So they got up from what they said after the game. They got up and subbed themselves into the game before Darvin could put them in. Coach Darvin Ham could put them back into the game. So they said, "Hey, let's close this out." AD blocked a shot, and that kind of ended the game. But yeah, that happened. So it's a different dynamic.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic. I feel like 10 years ago, that would have been like a bigger story, right? Like players could sub the, now it's kind of like, we know this is what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we see LeBron taking timeouts from the team before Darvin Ham does. And there's been a lot of criticism of Darvin Ham over the course of the season. In this case, I can't blame him. I mean, LeBron is incredible as a basketball mind. He knows what the game needs. And if LeBron says, "Hey, I'm subbing back in," he's subbing back in.
We talked about Vanderbilt a little bit, but what would his return mean for the team?
Well, I think it's not only does he give you a defensive presence, but I think what he does is he makes the backcourt duo of D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves a little bit more palatable on the defensive end of the floor. That's really where the team has struggled since the All-Star break. They've been one of the worst defensive teams in the league, except for the last couple of weeks. They've picked it up. They've played an easier schedule the last few weeks too, but they've picked it up there. But what Jared Vanderbilt does is he gives you a plus defender that can make up for some of the deficiencies of that D'Lo and Austin backcourt pairing. Now you're getting Gabe Vincent back in the fold. Spencer Dinwiddie has been pretty solid defensively, so that's helped to kind of raise the floor for them defensively as well. But Vanderbilt is really the piece that can make that work, and just their offense, Austin's offense and D'Lo's offense, can also help to mitigate Vanderbilt's defense or offensive concerns as well. So they really kind of fit together. So that's what he does. He gives you another guy that can be a pesky defensive player on a team that could certainly use them. He gives you another rebounder, which they've struggled in that area as well. So he gives you somebody that can do all the things that the team needs. And I think to a degree, he unlocks the viability of your backcourt right now, knowing that they've got a particular weakness. He can help to kind of paper over some of that. So I think he's an important player for them. My concern is what version of Jared Vanderbilt do you get? We saw him come back from his injury in preseason. He came back in December, and he was not Jared Vanderbilt. He was not himself. He was 65, 70% of the guy we're used to seeing. And it
Mm.
took a month for him to get back to being himself. And then, by my estimation, we got like 5 games of him actually being Jared Vanderbilt, and then he got hurt again. So if he comes back here for the postseason, do we get that kind of 70% version of Jared Vanderbilt that isn't? That guy was not all that impactful. Then we got a taste of what he can really be when he's 100%, and he got hurt again. If he's close to 100%, he can make a difference. If he's that 70% version of himself because he's still not back from the injury fully, that's not going to make as big of a difference for the Lakers.
Speaking of versions, I feel like people forget how good Spencer was with the Nets. If you had to put a percentage on it, how close is he to prime level Spence at this point in his career?
I mean, 70% maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's hard to say because he's totally different. He's
Mm-hmm.
adapted into a totally different game where now,
Right.
like with the Nets, we saw so much. He's handling the ball. He's going to run pick and roll. He's going to take and
Right.
make some tough shots, all of that. Now, his primary focus, and he's hasn't been known as being a good defensive player over the course of his career. Now his primary focus is defense. And when the shots come, the shots come. We saw it against the Wolves where he started getting going early and he started to be more aggressive offensively. But most nights, you're kind of wondering where the shots are, why he's not getting more looks. And a lot of it is just there's other guys on the team that can score. And so his focus has been on being a switchy defender, filling in where Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell really struggle on the defensive side of the ball. That's been what's got him minutes on this team. So his role has shifted so completely. Every once in a while, you get flashes of the Nets version of Spencer Dinwiddie when he has to. But for the most part, that's not what's being asked of him on this team.
Well, a flash like that could could change a series, right? Like if he has a game
Sure.
like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. And we've seen it a few times this season where he's got it going like that when he gets the shots falling and everything. But it's been few and far between for him this season. You expected this kind of offensive dynamo to come in, and it's been the opposite. It's really been his defense that's carried things for him.
Subscribe to the NBA report right here. Give us a like and also subscribe to Combos Court wherever you tune in. Last thing before we get out of here, Trevor, a little bit of rapid fire. It's a fan favorite here on Combos Court. So here we go. LeBron is currently a top blank NBA player.
Oh gosh, I don't have my ranking in front of me, but I'm gonna say when LeBron's at his best, he's very much still top 10.
Okay.
He's still top 10. Now on a low night, on a low energy night, he may not be, but most nights he's top 10.
Greatest Laker ever.
It's Kobe. Greatest Laker of all time, Kobe. And I grew up as a Magic Johnson guy. I grew up as a child of the 80s and all that, but it's Kobe. 20 years in LA. Kobe Bryant, greatest Laker of all time.
Most underrated Laker of all time.
Ooh, of all time, the first name that pops into my mind is Lamar Odom, who got plenty of credit, as a sixth man and all that stuff. But
yeah,
his game, especially, man, if you could get a time machine and bring Lamar Odom to today's version of the NBA, he's so good, so talented. Lamar Odom, it definitely doesn't get quite enough credit, even though he did get that sixth man of the year.
His peak, his ceiling is like a superstar. Like just the tools he had. He was like a 6'11" point guard at one point. He was phenomenal.
Yeah, he's amazing. Amazing player.
Most overrated Celtic of all time.
Oh, most overrated Celtic. I think Mr. I shoot threes because there's no fours. Antoine Walker. Got a lot of love. So I'll go with Walker. But if I really sat down and thought about it, I'm sure there's a bunch of other guys that I could come up with. But actually, you know what? Kendrick Perkins. Come on, Doc. Come on, Doc. Doc Rivers is telling us that they lost in 2010 because they didn't have Kendrick Perkins. Come on, man. Kendrick Perkins wouldn't swing in that series.
Who was a better Celtic for that year they won the championship, Garnett or Pierce?
I got to go with KG. I thought that the 08 Celtics, particularly because in that matchup, his ability to physically deal with Pau Gasol and Pau and we know that bothered him, and he really made a point to try to improve the physicality of his game. I thought that aspect of that series was so critical to them getting the win that he was able to kind of bully Pau. That was a major factor in the outcome.
Who would win in a best of 7 series between the current Lakers and the current Clippers?
Oh man. I think it would be very close. I think the NBA would love it. Adam Silver would be thrilled with the ratings that they would get. I'll go with the homer pick and be biased and say that the Lakers would get it done. I think their team is structured well enough to do it. But good Lord, I mean, anything could happen in that one. All I could say is somehow, some way, it would wind up with, it would be game 7. The game would be on the line, and somehow the ball would find its way into Russell Westbrook's hands, and it would either be the most catastrophic thing ever for the Clippers or the greatest thing ever for the Clippers, and there would be no in between.
Pancakes or French toast?
I'm gonna go pancakes.
Okay,
pancakes for me, for sure.
Greatest NBA franchise?
Oh, I mean, it's the Lakers.
Trevor, great stuff. You're always welcome back on the show. Please let everyone know where they could find you on social media and everywhere else.
Sure, yeah. Everybody can find me over on X at Trevor_Lane. You can find me on Instagram at Trevor Lane NBA. Most of my work is over on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lakers Nation. You can also find me on the Front Office Show over on YouTube, Apple Podcasts as well. Same thing for Lakers Nation. But thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Anytime. You actually covered the NBA at large on that other pod, right? It's not only Lakers talk. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I do cover the entire league. A lot of it through a salary cap perspective, but yeah, we bounce around all the different news topics and everything like that of the day. Keith Smith and I do.
Very cool. Trevor, you're always welcome back on the show, and talk soon.
Hey, thank you.